Hello and welcome to our Saturday stream. I'm Josh and this is our map and image creation here in Fantasy Grounds Unity. So thanks everyone for joining me today, and I hope everyone's having a great week. Lots of interesting, cool stuff that's happening inside of the image workspace in Fantasy Grounds. So we're going to continue on our exploration of those new tools today. As well as looking at the two new art packs that just got released, which would be the Medieval Machines as well as the third Modern Industrial Art Pack. So lots of great stuff happening there. One of the things that I did want to talk about today, as in addition to that, I'm going to go through a brief preview of the two new art packs. And then I'm going to talk to you guys about any of your previously created maps and the new system and how you can go in there and alter a lot of stuff now after the fact. So that should be pretty cool. As well as we will be creating some new stuff today. So as I said, thanks everyone for joining me. And we will jump right into it here. So let's open up our new art packages that have just been released. Now if you do have the Art Subscription, you do get all of these as they get released for free. Well, not for free, but with no additional cost with the subscription amount. I believe it's $5 a month or $50 a year. So far, we've released over 30 something art packages, thousands upon thousands of images. So I sincerely would recommend that you guys pick that up if it's something that you're interested in creating maps inside of Fantasy Grounds. With the art subscription, not only do you get everything that has been released, but everything that we will be releasing as long as you have that active subscription. So let's have a look here. Now we'll go into our medieval machines first. And what I did with the creation of this process, or the reason of the creation of this particular art package, was for all of those times that you might be wanting to do like the inside of a clock tower or any sort of kind of cog and gear based machinery, all based around that kind of medieval style. Let's open this up here. Modern, let's see here, medieval. Inside of this, we have a whole bunch of new brushes. So we have like a muddy road, more stone walls, and so forth, as well as a whole bunch of new wooden elements as well. Yeah, J-Rock. Hey, how's it going? Also, yes, there's been lots of. So far we've released Abandoned Places, which is a whole bunch of different ones for that, as well as the modern industrial stuff. So lots of things for creating like bunkers and so yes, there is a whole bunch of art packages that have been released in that vein, as well as some additional kind of timber elements. The real meat of this is in the decorations here. I'm just going to kind of make this a little bit bigger here, and we can kind of stretch it out. So you can see we have all of these different machine parts of cogs and gears, and lots of different types of machine elements as well. So you can definitely build, and I think that I have actually, let's just open up our images here. Let's go to all here. And here is a kind of a representation of lots of the different mechanisms and whatnot that you can kind of create with this art package. So lots of cool, interesting environmental kind of things here. Yeah, very neat. In addition to that, we also have a whole bunch of new floors, some pre-made shapes and whatnot, as well as some nice seamless textures that we can now use in the fill elements. Now let me just make this a little bit smaller again so that we don't have to worry too much about that. In addition to that, we have the new Modern Industrial Art Pack. So we have now 3 of these, and this is the third one that has just been released. This one consists completely of decorations, and lots of cool decorations inside of here. So what we have here is all kinds of different like shipping elements. There's even lots of different machine parts, but in a much more modern type of environmental systems here. We've actually used this in the past a couple of different times. Lots of little things, and you can build some really cool kind of stuff like that. I also have an art one that I had created. Let's see here, industrial area, and this uses all three of the art packs kind of in unison. You can see here are some of those machine bits and tanks and things. So definitely a very cool kind of environment here. Great. So the first thing that I really want to talk about before we get going too far into this, let me just switch back over to this section here. Now this is something that these packages are going to be coming out soon. But here's one, and this is kind of like a good example. So this is from the abandoned places, and inside of those are packages for doing all of these kind of decrepit and broken down areas. We actually have done a couple of different post-apocalyptic kind of environments here. This will take a minute to load in here with both of these open. But here again, it's the kind of the usage of these, and you can see that you can really create some really cool kind of very Fallout-y kind of environments here. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, here we have this map we made a little while ago. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to redo this right here, the road itself. And because we have some of the new features in our painting tools, we can kind of come back in and fix things after the fact, which is a really great kind of system here. If I go into the painting tools here and we switch over to the edit tab, you can see that this is the actual road itself. I can certainly interact with this and change it to whatever I wish. But what I want to do is I'm going to actually recreate this road. I'm going to be placing it back into the scene itself. And there's a couple of different ways that I can kind of do that here. In this particular environment, this is all of those ground kind of textures here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to double click on this road itself. Before I delete it, I'm going to go over into my line area here, and I'm going to grab this little sample. And then I can click on it. You can see this will load it right up. We have this new select sample, and this works even with our stamp tool. So anything that we need to, we no longer have to constantly kind of search through anything that we put into our maps. And this is one of the great things about coming back into these maps after the fact, after we've already done things, and readjusting things later as the tools improve. And so with this kind of laid out here and me having it already loaded up, I can come back into my edit tab and I can just hit delete. Now to avoid having to worry about the way that these things are kind of overlaid, because anything I paint into this area right now is going to be on top of this particular layer. I'm going to create a new painting layer, and I'm going to drop this down right underneath the one that I had before, and I'm going to switch back over to my line tool. But now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add in a fade element. I want the edges to kind of fade out a little bit into the surrounding area here. And so let's type in something like 2. Now we might do this a couple of times just to see how this is going to work or where it's going to be. And no longer do we have to really worry too much about where we kind of paint these things out, because all of this can be adjusted now after the fact. And so I'm just going to do this. You can see that that fade is probably a little bit too much, right? So I'm just going to hit escape and I'm going to hit Control Z. And now let's change the fade to maybe like 1. And again, we can kind of paint this out. Oh yeah, that's much better. And this is going to give it that nice feel. And what this does is it fades in from the edges. And the fade that comes from the edge, and I'll just double click to kind of end it. And you can see I'm not going to worry about that right now. But what I can do is I can come back in here now and I can adjust all of these elements here. So let's say I'm going to hold down Control so it snaps to the grid. And I'm just going to move this around. And I think I'll move this out a little bit. And then we'll move this over. And then that's going to, well, actually, why don't we put it over here? So we'll keep our stop sign. And let's say we want to adjust where that stop sign is now. So all I have to do is go into the tab where it is actually located. Here it is. And I can just, oh, that's the actual thing itself there. Oh, so let's see here. Do we have, Where is it located here? Oh, that's rather interesting. I wonder how is this located in this painting here? And some of these, it looks like we dragged and dropped out these elements. So it might be, yeah, here it is, road sign. So we can just grab this. It wasn't painted and we just dragged and dropped it. We can move it right over. But as you can see here, in our painting tab, I can switch over, and if I want to move this shadow, I can do this after the fact. Now, all of these elements now we can kind of interact with after the fact. So if I want to move some of these elements back, as you can see here, I can kind of do that. And I can actually grab a whole bunch of these at once and kind of move them around. You can see that there is multiple layers here of this kind of texture that we do. And so we can just kind of grab these and move them back a little bit. It looks like that we have a couple of different elements here, as you can see. And this is why it's so important to make sure that we label all of these elements. So let's just move this back to the side here. Yeah, J-Rock, doesn't it? It's really coming along great. So I'm not exactly sure if the question is, has the updating changes you make without having to reload been fixed? And I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. If you could clarify, I would be more than happy to try to answer that for you. So yeah, great stuff that we have going on here. Carl's done a wonderful job. I'm super enjoying this new system. It's working so exceptionally well. In fact, while we're talking about this, I'll show you that I've been working on a whole bunch of different and new ways to interact with the system. And so, for example, one of the cool things that you can do now, and let me just switch some of this stuff out, and I'll switch this over here. So I've been working on creating these brushes with these fill elements that will work in multiple different scenarios without having to have tons of different multiple images that are kind of placed out here. So I'm just going to switch this over. Let's do something like I'm going to make this a rounded edge. And so basically what this is a brush that is the edge of maybe trees or bushes and so on. And then in the fill element, it's just that. It's a repeating texture of very much of the same kind of image. And so if we switch over, I'm going to do, well, let's actually just do a rectangle here. And I'm going to change it to rounded. We'll start it off as normal. And let's create a new layer over here just so I can delete it at the end here. But as you can see, I can drag this out and it will create whatever shape that I want to. And I can switch over to the add element and we can just add right to this. And you can see here, basically what you could do now is create any sort of hedge that you wanted to, add to it in any way that you wish, and all of this just all works together in this seamless kind of way here, which I think is just phenomenal. We can even switch over to a circle here and we can drag out a section, add to it in any way we want. And so you could create like, I'm working on a whole bunch of different new textures and brushes that can just be added. You could like create a forest line really quickly and easily, roofs, buildings, the same kind of thing where you can have like the edge of what might be considered to be like the outer edge of whatever image that we're kind of working on here. Works great with like water and so on and so forth. And we can just continue to build these things out, including lots of different textural things that we can kind of add around. So like muddy areas like this, I can create a rim brush and then with a fill texture on the inside, and it will just work. Oh yeah, that should be fixed. Yep, that should be fixed, Drake Star Dragon. So are you talking about when we come in here and we try to do our update in real time? as we can come in and we can change the shape of this. We can do whatever we want to here. As you can see, make any sort of shape. And this would be great for doing like hedges and mazes and all of that stuff. Yeah, it should be all fixed. I haven't run into that problem all week. So if we do run into it, we'll see. But I don't believe that we shall, so hopefully. But yeah, really great stuff here. You can see that this seems very seamless with a really nice interactive kind of system here. And we can come in and change all of this after the fact. Very, very cool. So I'm just going to delete that. We can kind of come back in through here. And I just wanted to show that you can come back in and you can change all of these things after the fact. We can grab any number of, so here's a small cemetery that we did a long time ago. And again, we can just come in and change all of these effects, all of these painted elements, move things around, delete elements that we don't want, change all of this stuff very, very easily, which is great. So we could do the same thing with this. We could create a fade on here. We could even look at, let's actually look at that and see here. I'm assuming that this is it. Yeah. So we can change these, make this seem a little bit more natural. And I could even come in and fade out this edge, redo this element super easily. Super cool. So let's close this down. So we're going to be creating a new environment today, but that is something that I just did want to go over before we get going too much here. It's going back in and changing all of those things and some of the stuff that will be coming out in the future here. I actually have a art package that I've been working on for doing the exterior of like castles and whatnot, and using these new systems. I think it's going to be super fun. So was there some examples of items being changed to the point that it leaves a question mark in place? Not that I've seen. I haven't had any sort of issues along the lines of. So if you see a red question mark, what that means is that there's a reference in the XML file for that particular image that is no longer there. So one of certain ways that can happen is if let's pull up this battlefield map here that we made a long time ago. If there is one of these images that has been painted or placed on the battlefield, and it is no longer in the same location, so if you have images that were in like a campaign folder, so let's say for example, and I can demonstrate this probably without too much problem here. I can drag and drop in something like this, right? So this is Forest 2 PNG, then I'm doing it from this campaign folder. And if I go into my actual listing, my file here, and I move this to a different location, you're not going to be able to see what I'm actually doing here, but I'm going to do this from my file browser here. And we're going to go into channels. I always work in the test channel because I have to make sure that everything works with all of the new rule set changes and everything along those lines. But I'm going to go into my my campaigns and into the campaign images here, and I'm just going to move it to a different location. I'll kind of demonstrate what this will look like to you guys. Now, if you change the name of it or if you change its location, when it goes to look for that file, you'll get this this red question mark for you. And so I'm just going to go into here and there, and I'm just going to move because what we're actually using is the second one there, and I'll just move it to a different spot here. Let's move it into. I'll move it from my overall images to from my campaign images, so we can still see that it's the same image. But we'll... Now this is still loaded in memory, so you're not going to see this. But when I update this, you're going to see now I get this question mark because I've moved the location. So you should only get this if you're with images that you... So if you reorganize your images and put them into new folders, if you do certain things like that, then you're going to get this. But you can see if I come into here and in this particular area here, you can see that this is the actual image here. And if I go into, let's go all the way up here and go into my data. Here it is. Oh, so do you know which art package it's from? Let's have a look. Nothing should have been changed in its naming, so let's have a little look here. So this one? And it looks like it's from the Underground Map Pack 2. I'll double check that for you, Raven Master, and just make sure that it didn't accidentally get changed in any sort of way, and I can revert that name changing, and it would fix that up for you. But I don't believe that it's been changed, but I'll double check for you. Let me just write it down here. Yeah, no problem. But I will double check to make sure that that nothing strange has happened or whatnot. So thanks for letting us know. But that is the actual reason why you get those. If something has changed its name or if it's in a different location. But yeah, anytime that anything like that comes up, please let us know. We can take care of it straight away. Great. So let's start creating something new now. So let's see here. Do you guys have any ideas about anything that we should be creating? I'm thinking about using the new. I'm completely open to suggestions here. Oh yes, this place that we made a while ago. Oh, that was the one that I made for the. Well, let's save the medieval castle because I have a new art pack that's going to be coming out soon. That's going to be really cool to kind of demonstrate that. So we'll hold on to the medieval castle and then we'll do that in the future here. Sure, yeah. Yeah, let's do it. We can add in a lot of these elements together. So we did a whole bunch of post-apocalyptic ones. And so why don't we do another fantasy one this time, and we'll kind of just throw this together here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right-click, and I'm going to create a new item, and we'll call this the Gnome Tinkerer. And let's open this up here a bit. Start to work in our workspace here. So we're going to do this we'll do it in the woods by a stream, and so that's where we're going to kind of start off here. I'll close down my image tab and open up my assets again, move it right over here, and I'll just jump into the 2019 art package. I'm going to grab a couple of these tiles, or just maybe even one of them. I'm going to turn off my stroke and switch over to my fill here, and let's grab Then we'll grab this dark ground to start off with. And what I'm going to do is this should immediately begin to, we can just kind of drag this out and create a nice big workspace for us without very little effort here. And I'm going to hold down Control, just snap it to the grid, and we can pull something out like this. And now what I can do is, well, there's lots of different things that I can do at this point. But I think what I'm going to actually do is, we'll name this ground, is before I start to add in any grass or whatnot, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do one for water. Because we're going to do a little stream, and we'll create a nice little place here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'll switch over to, well, actually, let's just use this. I'm going to grab one of these water tiles, and I'm going to do exactly the same kind of thing here. And if we go into our brushes, we actually do have some nice brushes that we can kind of use to add a little bit of additional elements to this. So I'm going to grab this one and drop it right in here like this. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a fade to this. I want this to fade a little bit more from the edges here. So I'm just going to do something like, we'll do 1, see how that is. And I'm just, let's actually do rectangle first, or no, we'll do like a circular kind of side over here. And we can kind of drag something out like that. I'm going to hit Control Z, and I'm just going to flip it so that this works a little bit more like I think it's going to. And now I'm going to switch over to the add element. You can see that that fade, just a little bit on the edge, just makes it blend in a little bit more here. And then I'm just going to do, well, let's actually do, I'll show you how we can kind of add into this. And I'm going to do this with another ellipse. And the reason for that is I'm actually going to come back in and readjust this shape quite a lot here. So I'm just going to add this in like this. And then we can jump over. You see we have a whole bunch of different lines here that we can kind of use to interact with the system. And we can change the shape quite a lot here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start to make this my little river element. And we'll grab this and kind of just change this out. And this is a nice, quick, and easy way that you can kind of make these shapes that you want to here. Let's add in just a nice little kind of And now that I know kind of where I want all of this stuff to kind of be, and I'm not going to worry about these edges that I have here. We can, if these bother us, we can come back in and add in some additional water elements on top. But all of this is very easily adjustable. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the edit fill, and I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger, these textures, and I'm going to move it so that it's a little bit more, and I might even like rotate it here a little bit. So we get a little bit extra out of what we're kind of creating here. And I'm just going to come back in here. Let's adjust this. This is a little bit wonky right there. And so that's really cool. Then we have this nice mouth to this open area over here. And so now we can come back in and we can just type in like rock, for example, and we can use some of these water kind of rocks here. And I'm going to switch over to my stamp tool. I'm going to do it right in the same layer. And I'm just going to grab and drop this like right in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this and kind of make this so that it seems like it's going in the direction of the water flow. So I think we'll do it something like this. Just kind of stamp this in. We can use both of these here. And we can even come in and start to add in lots of other kind of elements here. But maybe we'll do a couple more. We could even do a nice little kind of stuff along there. But I'm not going to worry about this too much for right now. We'll have a little bit to kind of go here and create. And we can grab some of these other rocks and whatnot if we want to place these around. But this will just give us a little bit more of a kind of an idea. We can come back in and we can move these after the fact and change them around if we wish. Kind of create the environment that we want here. Great. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll do the same kind of thing here. Well, we could do it a couple of different ways, and let me give you a couple of options here. So we'll go into our decorations first. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab some of these, I'm going to go back to the stamp tool here. And I'm going to grab some of these grass elements here. We'll do some forest floor and whatnot as well. So we'll put in like a water wheel here, and we'll do our structure up this way. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stamp some of these around, and I'm going to lower down my opacity here a bit and stamp a couple of these things out. And we'll do some large ones. And then we're going to do this basically just for some texture here. We can even bring it right up to the water's edge. And we could even do some that are kind of like above it. But you can see that this creates a really nice little like transition here. We might even want to build like a waterfall over here. Lots of cool stuff. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a new effects layer. I'm going to drop this down in here. Well, we could actually do it. In fact, let's delete that one. Let's go into our effects layer, and with this selected, I'm going to create a mask based right off of this fill element. And this is going to use the fill element of that painting layer. And I'm going to drop it down in. I want it to be underneath the water here. And let's go down to adjust colors. And what I can do is let's drop down the red a little bit, and we'll also drop down the blue a little bit, make it a little bit green. Maybe make it a little bit lighter here. And I can now, because it already has this mask in here, what I can do is I can go right into the hide area, and I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm just going to start to remove some of these areas, just to create like a little bit of variance in the ground texture itself. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blur out those edges. So you get this nice kind of transitional stuff between all of these different elements. And this just kind of randomizes all of this stuff. And we can add in a little bit more, creating a very varied texture that we're going to be using to kind of build up on top of. If we feel as though this is too light, we can also adjust all of this stuff. So feel free, like all of these elements are able to be interacted with after the fact, which is a really great thing that we can kind of do here. The other thing that we can do is we can create one for our fill element here, and we can do a water, for example. And what we'll do is we'll create, we'll drop down our intensity a little bit and maybe add in some additional, maybe we'll make it a little bit faster and increase our droplet there. And again, we'll go into the hide area and we'll remove our rocks here. And I'll do the same over here. And again, we can kind of blur out those edges if we want. You can see how quickly we can kind of put all of these things together here. Great. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down into my ground area here and switch back over to my stamp tool. We'll grab some of these like forest kind of textures here. And again, I'm going to drop down the opacity. I'm just going to use this for like texturing here. And we'll create some elements. This will be placing some trees and whatnot. You can see we're doing it underneath our adjusted colors, so all of this kind of just works us through all of this different texture. You can see how much texture we have and color variations that we have going on there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to place all of my plants around. And we can do that a whole bunch of different ways as well. We can either use these ones, but there is tons of different ones that we can use throughout all of the different art packages. So I'm just going to type in plant here. And this is going to pull up all kinds of different plants from all of the different art packages all around the place here. I think specifically I'm going to go in and do ground plants. So there are some, and I'm just going to type in ground plant and get some of these ones as well. Oh yeah, that is a good idea, Raven Master. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and I'm also going to lower down the opacity here. And I'm going to create a new painting layer, and this is going to be all of our plants. And again, I'm just going to start stamping these around, maybe even lower down the opacity a bit more. And you can see how quickly you can start to build up these rather neat kind of environments. And I'm going to change the size, the rotation, and the opacity as I kind of move around here. And I'm just kind of stamping here and there. I'm going to leave this pretty open because that's where our building's going to be. But we want the surrounding area to kind of feel natural and lived in. And so randomness is kind of a great tool for doing that. By lowering down our opacity, we're going to allow some of those colors to kind of bleed through. It's not going to feel as though it's too impactful on the image. It's just that background texture that we're kind of creating right now. I'll type in bush, and we'll get a bunch of these kind of pre-made bushes. And this is from our desert map pack. And I'm going to do these right on top here. And again, we can always come back in and move these around. Let's do some that are kind of overhanging out over our water. You know, it'd be cool if we created another one and we could come down just above our water. And if we lower down our opacity, we can make it look like there's a little bit of like a reflection in the water. We can actually put this underneath so it looks like it's waving. And I'm just going to place a few more of these around. Some nice full undergrowth. And we'll create a couple of other. Oh, it looks like I put a bunch of those on that layer. That's okay. Let's grab some of these other plants and whatnot. And we can actually kind of put some coming out from underneath some of these as well. And some above. I like to layer these on top of each other. It makes it feel very natural. As you can see, we can do smaller ones to kind of be that newer growth that's on top. Great. Let's create a new painting layer. We'll call this one structure. And let's plot out our shape here. So we can go into the new medieval machines. We'll use some of that stuff. Nope. Here it is. And we'll go back into our rectangle tool, and we'll grab one of these brushes. We'll grab maybe like this timber brush, or we'll grab this one. This should work fairly well. Make sure we turn our fade off. And then we'll go into our floors, and I'll switch over to the fill element, and we'll just drag that in like this. So we'll do like a nice solids kind of structure here. And with our rectangle, I think I'm going to move it to, let's do a mitered corner here. This is going to keep everything nice and very square. So I'm just going to hold down Control and drag out a nice big space here. Let's do it maybe something like this. And then with our add selected, we can kind of build out another little section that comes this way. And maybe even a small element that kind of comes out over the water here. And this is where we can kind of create our axle that comes through. And we can build some stuff underneath as well. But I really like how we can kind of create the shape that we wish. And you can see that with that mitered edge there, we get these nice sharp corners now. Again, we can come in here and we can readjust any of this that we want. We can make the wood a little bit bigger or smaller, whatever we wish. And if we ever decide that we need to add more elements to it, so maybe we want to do like a circular kind of rounded section back here, all we have to do is we can just come back in here, and because we did some adjustment there, we just want to grab this and it'll recalculate all of these things to make sure that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be for our connective piece here. Now I'm going to hit Control Z because I'm actually going to hold down Shift. I want to keep this fairly round. And it's okay if I want this up here. Let me show you. I can move all of this very easily. Let's actually grab all of it, and I can just shift it right up to wherever I want to. Maybe I want these to be a little bit more open. All I have to do is just move this stuff. Maybe we'll do something like this, and we'll kind of mirror it. So I have this like rounded kind of element that kind of comes back here. So what we can do is kind of build this out, and then we can create lots of kind of like machines and whatnots that kind of come off of this. And maybe do like a little like workstation over here or whatnot. Excellent. So here we have a whole bunch of different stuff. Let's create a little porch over on this side, and maybe we'll do it with these boards here. And I'm actually going to just stamp these in something like this. I think we'll do it this way. And I'm just going to go down onto this plants layer, and I'm going to hold down Control to kind of like snap it into place here. But I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, I think, something like this. And we'll just kind of stamp in these boards and make like a little makeshift porch area here, a little entry area. And we can do like our steps down from there. And then we have all of our different, we actually have some little like entrance areas and whatnot that we can kind of use as well here. So you can see how quickly we can start to build all this stuff together and create these environments. And the great thing about the way that this system is set up is because we're using all of our painting tools, we can at any time duplicate all of these. I'm going to wait and do this kind of at the end, but we can create our line of sight with just a click of a button, and that's, I think, one of the greatest features of our workspace here. I wonder if there's any posts in here. I wonder, let's just see here. Yeah. I'm actually going to switch back over and let's go here and back to our structure here. And I'm going to kind of create my own little element here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my aspect lock ratio here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, but I'm going to make this a little bit more narrow as well. So let's do like 0.7. So it's a little bit more narrow, and I'm just going to kind of build out a couple corners to my porch here. So I'm going to do like one here, and then I'm going to flip it. And we'll do one like down here. We'll have a little bit of an overhang when we create our roof. And what I'll do is I can kind of build with some of the brushes a little bit of the structure that's going to kind of go over there. It might even be kind of cool if we grab something like this. Again, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. We can flip it this way, and I'm just going to kind of build out. We'll do a couple of these guys that kind of like stick out from a couple of lanterns there. Very cool. Now let's start to build some of the other elements inside of here. Oops, I didn't want to go all the way up there. And we'll go into our decorations here. And we actually do have, let me just type in wheel. We have, do we have water wheels in this, or is that in the coastal one? Yeah, it's in coastal. We can grab that in a moment. But I'm going to actually grab one of these like axle elements. And this is kind of what we're going to start off in building our structure here. So I'm going to grab this one. Rotate it here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Maybe something like this. And again, I'm just going to have it kind of sticking straight out of here. We're going to build this little entry area down here. But we're just going to kind of build this. Actually, we should create our own a new layer for this. And I'm actually going to layer this one on top a little bit here. Maybe something like this. Make it a little bit smaller here. And then I can go into like gear. And we can grab some of these things. And we want to do this in a couple of different layers because as we begin to build this, I don't really have a game plan in mind. So we're going to need to kind of adjust these as we kind of progress here. And maybe we'll do something like this, and we'll create another layer. We should do one below and above. So maybe we'll put it down here, underneath. And then we can grab another one, something like this. And we want this to, oh, maybe we'll put it over here. And begin to build out all of these different elements here. Where all of these kind of drive each other around. Maybe we'll do that one again, actually. Something like this. Match these up a little bit, not that it matters that much. I think I'll just move it over just a tad, something in here. And then we can move this one a little bit. Great. And we have a whole bunch of different types of parts that are have additional kind of elements to them. So we can start to pull in lots of different kind of stuff here. We'll be switching back and forth between these two layers here. And one of the things that we have, like these little platforms and whatnot, and housing elements for many of the different types of pieces here. And seeing things at different angles. As you can see here, we have a lot of like these kind of pre-created conglomerates that we can kind of place in and begin to quickly develop a rather interesting looking mechanism. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure as you're kind of doing this is it doesn't really need to make sense. It just has to look as though, like, it wouldn't have to necessarily actually work, right? It just has to have that feeling of lots of machine-esque features here. Let's kind of put this down here. We might even do one again underneath. Maybe we'll do something like this coming out. I think we'll do it. Yeah, let's do it underneath here, like that. I think we'll grab some of these like frame elements as well. And we can do, I think we'll do one more like large gear like on top of this. And one of the cool things about this new system, right, we can come back in and we can grab, if there's an element that we feel like is a little bit too hidden or should go away, we can just come back in and move it. I think that's all. I'm going to hold down Control. No, I'm just going to line these right up on top of each other. And we can put in like a nice little step ladder. Especially if it's a gnome. And we can put in we could even do like some built-in kind of stuff here. I'm assuming that these probably require lots of maintenance. So maybe we'll do something like this. We'll put it above, make it a little bit smaller here. Yeah, I would say that that works fairly well without too much effort. And now we can go back into our coastal. I'm just going to actually type in water wheel, I think. Yeah, here we go. And we could even grab something along these lines if we want to have like a little bit more of a dynamic kind of attachment here. And we can kind of rotate this. And I'm going to put this back onto the structure element down here. Maybe we'll make it something like this size. No, we're going to have to do it on this layer, I think. We'll line it right up like that. We can create like a whole bunch of different splashing and whatnot going on around there. I think that'll work pretty well. And these are actually from the interior map pack too. Which there's also a whole bunch of, now that I remember that, other kind of elements like that. So we go into interior map pack 2 and we go into decorations and structure. Here you're going to find some additional kind of elements like this that I had created a while ago. Rather complex kind of machine mechanisms, which will work really well with this as well. And we can kind of place this stuff in here in addition to this. I think that'll work pretty good. Lots of like quarry machines and stuff along those lines. While we're here, I think we can actually probably grab, or we'll just grab them from somewhere else. We'll do like a little stairs out here and whatnot. Excellent. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go down into the structure element here, which is this stuff. And we're going to start to place in, I want to add in some additional kind of texture stuff. One of the great things, and you can see now with all of that different texture on the ground outside, it really makes this kind of feel less so. So we can do exactly the same thing. We can create, I'm going to create a new effects layer. And I'm going to use the fill as a mask, so I only have to worry about it right out here. And again, one of the things that we can do is we can do our adjust colors, and I'm going to make some different variations. Maybe it's oil stains or whatnot, but let's make it a little bit more reddish, and we're going to make it a little bit darker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to hide area, and I'm just going to start to take away, maybe leave some on the edges here, and we're just going to blur that out. And you can see just by doing that, the variations that we get here are massive. It just makes it feel so much more like a lived-in space here. And once we add in our shadows and whatnot, it'll all really start to come to life here. And I'm actually going to, without holding down Alt, I'm just going to remove a bit on the actual some of the walls as well. Very cool. We can build in a nice little like work area over here, I think, right? We'll do like a little, maybe like tables and chairs, and we can do, one of the other things that we can do is to go back into our, not modern, medieval. Go into our decorations here, and we can start to add in some of these other incidental kind of items. So I think one of the things that I like to do with these ones that are at angles here is we can kind of do some like leaning up against the wall. Spare parts and whatnot. Oh, here we have some nice posts as well. So let's add a couple of these inside as well. We need some good structural integrity. And then we can put like, this is like a little storage area down here. Maybe we'll just leave those. There's quite a lot going on in here. Let's just add some decorations. Maybe there's some different like brushes and whatnot. And we can put a cart outside. Maybe we'll put like different things inside of the cart. Maybe we'll do something like this. We'll add a whole bunch of different stuff to it. So here we'll start to create like the housing for how this is entering in. Oops, we're gonna have to do that on this layer. We might want to use this one actually, I think. This will make it feel a little bit more, well, I don't know, I guess we'll use this one. That will work just fine, I think. And I think what we can do is, well, let's add in a couple of different crates and whatnot. We can put some different items in them. We'll make a little like workstation over in here. I'm going to do, yeah, let's do like two on top of each other, but I'm going to do them different layers so I can put items in that crate. Very cool. We have some fences and whatnot, so why don't we add that? We'll do it to the outside here. Create a little fenced-in area. I'm going to do it underneath so it kind of comes out. We can always come in and move these around a little bit. And then we can come in and let's change some of this a little. We can actually do some plants on top. So here's how easy the system is now. We can just do this and grab. Nope, we want to grab that. Are we on the right layer here? No, we're not. It's on that layer. So there we can grab it. Come back up to here. And we can build some stuff that's kind of like coming up over our fence. To give that kind of added feeling here. And we'll do some while we're at it, like poking out from underneath, growing along the edge of our building here. And we can do some that kind of comes up over the edge of our environment here. Very cool. Awesome. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down into my water layer here, and let's go into our coastal. And in our effects, we have a nice little water splash. And so I'm just going to drag and drop that in here. And I'm going to lower down that opacity. I'm going to kind of build up some splashes here as this is interacting with the water. And I'm going to do something similar as how these kind of trail, right? So as the water is coming, and this is going to be picking up the water on this side, we're going to be getting some nice splashes. I'll lower down my opacity a little bit more and do some along this edge. Make it seem like that there are some turbulent elements here. And drop all of this stuff in there as well. And I'm going to do the same thing with when I do my shadows. I'm going to add in some shadows from this as well. This is just going to be like the turbulence of the water. And we can come up onto our structure here. I'm going to go onto this one, and I'm going to add the same thing. I want to do some, because as the water pushes it, it picks it up on this side. And you'll have a little bit on this side as well. And what we can actually do is if we wanted to, when we actually do some of our interaction there, we can kind of make this seem a little bit wet or whatnot. It depends on how much we want to really get into the whole system here. Excellent. I think that what we really need to do now is start to put in some of our shadow content. But before we do that, why don't we throw in a couple of trees? And so I'm just going to type in the word tree. And we'll just grab a couple of them and place them around quickly, just so that when we do our shadows, it should be pretty easy. Yeah, let's just grab something. We'll grab this one. This one's from our jungle map pack. But I think this will work fine here. And I'll create a new painting layer, and I'm just going to call this one trees. I kind of like this little bit of a reflection that we did there. So why don't we add in a nice big tree over here. I want to put this like something like this. And then we can do a couple maybe over here. And what I'll do is I'll go back down into this layer down here. And I'll make it about the same size. I'm just going to lower down that opacity quite a lot. And we'll put this like that. And here we have a nice little reflection. We could do that with all of these elements as well. We could actually, if we wanted to, do the same thing. We could come down into this layer, drop down that opacity quite a lot, and place it on something like this. And create like a little reflection of the element. But this is going to kind of like spill out a little bit. You can see it kind of does there too. So what I would actually do if I was really going to try and sell this, I think that when we do our shadow there, we don't really need this one. But to kind of cover this up right here, all I have to do is go back into my ground layer here, and I'm going to grab this. It should grab that. Let's see here. Nope, we're in a stamp tool there. But we could do it with grass too. We just go into that same layer and just stamp right over those elements. Now I have these nice little reflections. Nice little added touch. So now let's start to create our shadow content. And I'm actually going to I'm going to paint in a lot of the shadows in this one. I will be using an effects layer to add some of the shadows, but I think we'll paint in some of these ones that are kind of in and around. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to call this like plants 2. And here we have machine 1. And then we'll do this one, machine 2. We may even want to go in and add in all kinds of different elements for our water as well. You know, add a little bit more out through here. But I'm going to go into the map module here, and I'm just going to grab this guy. I'm going to hold down R, G, and B. I'm going to use my mouse wheel to make it dark, and then I'm just going to hold down B and just add a little bit of blue to it. And I'm going to create a new painting layer, and I'm going to do this one underneath my structure. And I'm just going to start to paint out a little bit of these ambient occlusions. And it's going to be very dark, but that's okay. We're going to adjust a lot of this stuff. And we'll do some coming out from underneath these plants. I guess not that one because that one's below it. And we can come over here and do this. These little areas. We'll have a little bit that comes out into the water here. I'm actually going to make this one oblong, so I'm going to turn this off. And let's make this like something like 8. and do something like that. And now we can switch back over into our actual tab here, and we can just lower down our opacity to an area that kind of feels good for us. And move these around like that. Hit OK. Switching back over into our painting tab now, what I'm actually going to do is adjust this a little bit. We can move these in and around. Drag these back in a little, so it's not too oppressive there. Maybe move this over to something like that. But you can see that already begins to make a huge difference in separating this from the environment. And that's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create that contrast between what's there and the lower type of elements, right? We might even want to drop this down underneath, something like this. And then we can kind of move these things back out, like coming out from underneath there, something like that. Maybe there and there. We can kind of drag this out. And this is one of the great things about the new system, is that we have these almost unlimited amount of adjustments that we can kind of do. I'm going to keep this over there. We can switch back. I'll make this rather round again and just kind of drop some of these out like this. And I can actually control the opacity of this as well. Make this as subtle as I want to. And I can start to do some of these, like coming out from underneath some of these bushes. Maybe here. And I'll actually make it rather oblong now, even further than that. I'm going to lower down, I'm going to make it smaller and lower down my opacity a bit more. And I want it to even be a little bit more narrow than that, something like this. And I'm going to do some for these fence elements. I just want it to be rather subtle here. And you can see that's a little bit funky the way that that is underneath there. So what I can actually do is I can go back into like here, or I guess it's actually on, where is that stuff? Let's move some of these so that we can see them a little bit more. Maybe we'll move it out over to something like that. And then I can switch back over into here. Or where did we put that shadows? Here it is. Put this here. Have that poking out on that side. We'll adjust some of these so that this isn't quite so dark in here. Maybe something more like this. Great. Now you can see once we switch this out, just that subtlety creates such a huge dynamic kind of change there. And let's make this fairly round again. I'm going to lower down that opacity. I'm going to make it quite large. And I'm going to do some nice subtle changes over larger areas here. And I'll create a new painting layer. Let's drop this down in underneath our machines. And again, I'm going to increase my opacity here quite a lot. And I'm going to start to do some of these shadows kind of coming out. Because what we want to do is we want to do this in layers so that we have a good understanding of what is below and what is above. That's really what we're trying to understand here with this. And again, I'm going to come back into this tab, and I'm going to do this on the layer level and lower down that opacity. And if I lose something, that's okay. I'm going to come back into my painting tab, and I'm going to start to add. So as we start to build up these layers, we just have a little bit more control over how all of this kind of interacts with each other. And some of these really like recessed little areas we want to have nice and dark. Lots of good separation here. As you can see, really is starting to come together. Add a little bit more underneath these major areas here. And then I'm going to make it a little bit round once again, and we can do the same thing for all of these elements. And we're going to be doing some shadows on top of them as well. And we can even go back into this shadow one, and we want to do some coming out from underneath our little cart here. We'll be putting something in there. Great, this is a little bit wonky right there. So let's go into our machine layer here and find where that is. And all I have to do is just grab it and move it. And I could actually move it right out of the way here. We probably don't even need it. Well, we do there a little bit. So let's just move it back like something like this. I guess we'll leave it something like there. Oh, so we have a suggestion here. Oh, wool strings, multiple colors, thumbtacks. Yeah, that is a cool idea. And we're going to create one final layer of shadows here on top while we have all of this out. And again, we'll do exactly the same kind of thing, except this time we're going to be doing it on top of all of these elements, assuming that our light's coming from this top little area here. And again, we're not going to worry about how dark it is right now. We're going to adjust that on the Layer tab. So we can switch over. And by doing it on the Layer tab, it makes it easier for us to go back into. You can see that that becomes much more subtle now. And again, what we can do is start to create some of these other elements in here. Adding in the shadows from the water, and you can see that that separation there, it really starts to make it feel as though, and I'm even going to lower down my opacity a bit more, and we can kind of just do, and even lower down my opacity a bit more. Maybe even make it a little bit more blue in through here. And we can come right along here. Again, I'm going to change this to rather oblong. And we'll increase that opacity a little bit. And just go right along this edge here. Just to emphasize some of that. And I think I'll also kind of come out here and do something like this. I think I'll move this in a little bit. Create some nice little variations out here. We can actually, you know what, we could probably just delete these ones. I think I'll do it with an effects layer. Let's add in some effects layers here. So why don't we switch over to an effects layer, and I'll create a new one. And again, I'm going to be using adjust colors. And we can I'm just going to bring down the brightness here a little bit. And we'll probably actually put it something like 47. And then we'll bring down the red a little, and also the green. And we're going to create a mask. And we can increase that blur. And this way we can kind of make whatever shape we want to out here. And we can blur that out a little bit more. Let's blur it out all the way. And this way we can kind of adjust. Yeah, let's just do this whole area out here. And this is what's we can do some little, so the deeper the water goes, the darker it'll become. We can do maybe a little bit right here. Again, just going to create a little bit more variance there. We can adjust these, maybe make it a little bit more blue. Make it feel a little bit more natural. And I think what I'll do is, let's go back into the machines, the medieval machines. In our decorations, we have some entrances here. I think we'll put one right there. Let's use maybe something like this. Go back into the stamp. And we can kind of place it right here. I'm going to put it, let's do it on the structure line here. And that's where our doorway will be to go into the building. We should probably, let's actually make that a little bit more narrow. That's a little bit too much, don't you think? So what we want to do is make this more like 1. And we can put it like right here. Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit better. Oh, we should actually add in a little bit in there as well. So let's go back into this painting one. With the stamp tool, I can actually just grab this again. You can see how much easier that is to kind of interact with the system now. And we can kind of add in, I'm going to take down the blue a little bit. It's a little bit too blue. Just add in a little bit extra shadow on some of these elements. I actually want to make it seem like We can increase the opacity there a little bit. Like those are down in there. Add in a little bit more to some of this stuff, maybe. Giving it a little bit more shape. Excellent. Very cool. It's really starting to feel like a lived-in space here. What we actually need to do is add in our little steps over here, though. Let's see what might work good for us. I think this one will work well. And we'll go in underneath our structure here. Probably down even maybe like here. I want it to kind of go underneath here a little bit, something like that. What else do you guys think that we should add into this little scene? I think it's pretty much done. Let's do our line of sight really quickly. All we have to do is duplicate all of that as our line of sight here. And then I'll switch over to our doors. We'll add one here. And I think that's all we need. And what I'll do is switch to my line tool. And then we can whoops. We want to delete them. And there's all of our line of sight as well. Oh yeah, we could do that as well. Yeah, why don't we do, now that we got all of our main construction stuff done, we can add in, yeah, some vats of things. Maybe we'll put this full of like some bubbling stuff, do some cool stuff with that, and add in a little workstation. So I'm going to take a quick break, everyone. I'm going to refresh my beverages, just be a few minutes and stretch my legs. And then we'll add in some of those final details. And if you guys have any questions, or if there's something that I did that I didn't quite explain properly, please let me know in the chat, and I will make sure to do so. So hang out just for a few moments, and I shall be right back. And we're back. Thanks everyone for hanging out while I took a short break there. We're going to continue on the creation process of this little thing that we have going on here. I'm just going to adjust a couple of these little shadows really quickly before we move on. Kind of line these up for their a little bit too outside of the realm. We don't want to make these things feel like they're too tall. So one of the ways that you kind of create the illusion of height in a 2D image like this is you do it based off of the distance that the shadow travels across the ground. So the taller something is, the longer the shadow that will be cast by it. Obviously, depending on the angle of the light that's kind of coming in here, but we're assuming that this is probably somewhere when the sky is a little bit higher. We could actually come in and do some additional kind of stuff there, but why don't we jump in? We'll add in some additional kind of elements in here. We'll add in like a fluid inside of this little device here, and you can see that that's going to be on this level. And so what we can actually do, and this is one of the really cool ways that we can use this new system, is we can actually do it several different ways here, depending on what we want to do in here. So we can even, let's move back into our painting area here. I'm going to turn off the stroke. Move into this area where this is actually located. And we can actually, let's go back into our 2019 art package. And I can use this exact, maybe something like this. And I'll switch over to my fill. I'm going to drop this right in here like this. And what we'll do is I'm going to create a fill of this right in here. That's not... Do I have something lined up here? Oh, that's rather interesting, isn't it? Not sure where those came from. We'll continue on here. Let's switch back over to here, and we'll make sure that we have like a nice, corner types don't matter. Let's see here. Let's just drag out a little square over here and see what happens. Oh, this is very interesting. Seems to be a minor bug. Let's create a new painting layer and drop this down and see if that alleviates it for us. Make sure we have a brand new overlap, and yeah, it seems to be doing the same thing. Well, let's try resetting this, and we'll switch this over. Maybe if we turn this on, and there we go. It's working once again. So I'll have to record that and report that. So here, what I'm actually going to do with this particular area here, show you how we're going to interact with this. Let's make this line very small, and I'm just going to drag out my little section here. And I'm going to switch over to the subtraction mode. And then I'm going to subtract out a little bit here. And what I can actually do is I can come in here and now tighten this right up around this object that I want to have kind of exposed over it here. Now what else I can do is I can come in here and I can actually hold down F and create like a bit of a fade here if I want to. Now this system is based completely off of the grid. So to have more control over it, let me just switch back over and make sure that there's no fade. I'm actually going to change this down. Let's do something like 20, for example. We can change this back after. But now what I can do is I can switch over in here, and you can see that I can have much more gradual control over how this fades. And I can come in and readjust this. Now we do have this like line on here, so let's see if we can delete this now and do it without that line there. So I'm gonna hit delete, switch back over, turn off my stroke, and oh, we're on subtract. And I'm actually gonna let's change the grid system. Let's put it all the way down to 10. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down F, and we're going to fade that out so we get this nice little, it's just going to make it kind of feel like a little bit more of a subtlety kind of coming into all of this. And we can go to our subtract and do something like this. And we're going to want to bring this right in. Now if we want to have a little bit more going on here, like where this is rather angular, it's not going to really bother me because we're going to be adding some more elements on top of it here. But we could create more of these interactive points along these edges by cutting off these edges. So what I mean by that is we could switch over to our line tool or even our circle tool here, and with our subtraction we can create these, and we can adjust these after the fact, right? So maybe we do here, and we can just get rid of that right there like this. And we'll delete all of these extra. So because of you would be able to notice that there was some additional stuff here, but it's because of the fill here. We'll simplify this a little bit. But what we can do is grab some of this stuff. Now this is not something that you certainly necessarily have to do, but we can now manipulate all of these things. If you want it to have a little bit more of a natural kind of feel here. I probably could have done this. You know what? The easiest way to have done this, I probably went the hardest way. Let's delete that. We can just go into our line tool here, and holding down the mouse button, we can just kind of draw out our shape that we want. And then we can go in and fade that out. And we're going to have to come in here and simplify that. Probably not that much. Or maybe a circle would be best. Let's experiment with this. Let's see what would be the best way to do this. I'm thinking circle. This way we can do some nice little variants here on the outer edge. So it's a little bit uneven. And then we can come back in and readjust this a little bit. Yeah, something like that. We could even lower down the alpha of it a little bit. And we can even change its color. Let's make it like some sort of like pink fluid. We'll add some like bubbles to it. Let's do like something like this coming up off of it. We'll lower down that opacity. Build that up into some layers here. And we can create, let's create an effects layer on there. And we'll do ocean. We should change this back to 100 now. We can add a little bit out here as well. Let's see here, we can do a little bit more like this. And maybe a little bit more like that. I think what we'll do is we can actually come back into this particular like painting layer. We can add in a little bit of variations in our colors there. So I'm just going to grab this and let's see, I think grab our little shadow, lower down the opacity a bit. Just kind of come in from the outside here a little bit. You have some sort of strange magical fluid going. And we could even, we could go back into, and here's some of the great stuff that we can kind of do now. Let's go back into our coastal map back here. Nope, not decorations, but I can grab this effect. And I'm actually going to grab this color here. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I want to grab this one. Maybe we'll make it a little bit brighter though. And I'm going to lower down the opacity of this a little bit. And we'll do some like little variations here. A little bit maybe is spilled out over time. We'll do some on the here. Maybe a little bit on the floor. Good morning, Nebula. Cool. Now let's create like a nice little workspace over here. Let's look up. Let's grab a desk. Well, actually, we should grab a chair first. I'm thinking that we'll do something rather elegant. And we can put this down in on this layer, I think. So we'll put this here, and we can start to add in some cool stuff in through there as well. And we can grab a nice piece of furniture. Let's grab this one from the Victorian art pack. And again, we'll change its size here a little bit. I think we'll even make it, well, I guess that's a pretty good width. Gives us some room to, we can even make it a little bit bigger. But I think I will make it a little bit more narrow. Let's turn off the aspect lock ratio. Maybe not that much. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, it's a little bit off kilter there. I'm not really digging it. So let's just do the straight up and down one here. And again, I'm going to make it something like that. And we'll put it right up against the wall here. Nice. Now we can start to add in all kinds of cool stuff there. And we might even want to do like some different shelves around. We could do some things hanging off the wall. I mean, you can really go nuts and just add in as much detail as you want to here. So let's add some papers on here. And we can add this onto the next one, but I think what we'll do is do a little bit of stuff like this. And we can type in book. And we can start to do like a stack of like tomes and things. And I think we'll grab like a little, maybe some that are stood up. We'll put them over here. Yeah. Fairly cool. Maybe just do one more on top. Some smaller stuff. Now we can just type in bottle, not boodle. And we can start to grab in. There's actually a couple of different elements, but I think that if we add some of these ones, maybe this is like the bottled up, whatever it's been working on here. And we can grab maybe like this one. And maybe even a couple of these like groupings. We could do some broken bottles as well, maybe underneath. Let's see what else would be on his desk here. We got a whole bunch of different tools. Nope, we don't want to put it on there. We want to do it here. Start to place all kinds of different incidentals around here. And we can we got to add some coins, right? And we can put in like an inkwell. Let's do candles. But maybe what we can do is do like a cloth underneath, so we can come back down to here. Or maybe, I think that if we used like a rug or something, that might work really well. Yeah, let's do something like this. Maybe we'll change its color a little bit. How about we make it a little bit like blue-green? Kind of goes with the chair. So now all we have to do is go back in and start to add in some of the other like shadowy kind of elements and whatnot. So this is starting to look pretty good here, right? We have some interesting kind of stuff going on. So let's go into our shadows, and again, all I have to do is go to one of my shadows and just collect the element here. And I can just lower down my opacity by holding A and using my mouse wheel. And I'll just paint out some shadows coming out from underneath this stuff. That one's a little bit too, so I'll just move it over. A little too aggressive with the shadow there. And then we can go to our higher up one, and we can add in some shadows for all of these elements as well. Add a little bit of extra. It's this kind of stuff that will help give all of that definition. All that separation. And do a little bit along that crease. And we could even do a little bit, along here. So if we go back, we can actually do a lot of the similar kind of stuff that we did. We could fill these crates, and we could use like a fill layer and do it rather quickly. Much like this, let's say for example we have this nice coin one. If we turn this off and switch this over to like a coin fill, now, even though I haven't adjusted this to be I did it in the stroke. That's not what we want. We want it to be in the fill. As you can see, even though that this isn't set up to be a seamless texture, we can still change the shape of it and kind of fit it in there exactly the way we want to. So let me go into like this layer here. And let's come down. And what I'll do is I'm just going to create a little fill. And you can see how quickly we can kind of match that. And what I can do is I can come back in and I can adjust this. I can even change like the size of it. So maybe we have this whole little thing in here. And now what I can do, let's say because this is these kind of silver coins, I could make them gold. Or I could even make them a little bit more like copper. Kind of whatever we want. And again, I can also kind of fade out the edges if I want to make it feel kind of along those lines. And we could also do maybe we'll do like ingredients in there. What do you think would be good ingredients that would be used? Do you guys have any suggestions? I think while you'll actually come in here and do a little bit off of these as well. Maybe I'll come in here. Oh yeah, we could do some smoke near the gear elements for sure. Should we do some animated kind of smoke? We could use an effects layer, kind of just put some smoke around. So we can create a new effects layer. And we can jump over here and we could do clouds. And what we could actually do is enable a mask. Maybe we're going to have some that kind of comes off of here. And we'll blur out that edge. And let's slow down that speed. And we can increase that opacity. Maybe we'll increase the shadows here a little bit. Maybe we could do some coming off of here. We could actually do it where we have this kind of going that way. Do you think we should do it going the other direction as well? Maybe we should do like darker. Yeah, this is the new, hey, Play Games Patty, this is the new Medieval Machines that just came out this month. We're creating a little environment here. Let's actually, I'm going to remove those and let's make it go in the other direction here. So it kind of fits in with the this stuff. And we can kind of lower down the shadow we want. And we can kind of adjust how crisp we want that edge to be. Might want to bring this down a little. We could also try it with mist. Slow that down. See which one's going to work best for us. Yeah, I think probably clouds works the best. And what we can do with this, I think I'll increase the shadow a little bit amount here, is we can come in here and I'll kind of drop this down maybe to something like this down in here. We'll get a little bit of this other stuff that kind of affects it. You can see we get these nice little rolling things here. But we can just type in smoke. These are all in the Abyssal art package. But I'm going to grab one of these and let's grab like this one. And to make it a little bit more consistent, and what I'll do is I'm going to lower down the opacity of this. And we can just kind of paint in some as well. And we can use this exact same clouds one here. And we can duplicate this. And what we can do is in our effects tab, We can change some of these parameters, like the speed here, for example. We can lower it down to, we can make it something like 45. And so you get these layered kind of elements here. We'll kind of lower this ones down a little bit. Maybe increase the dark. And because they're moving at different speeds, and then we have this little like baseline here, you can create a little bit more of a consistent base here. You might have to mess around with some of the parameters here a little bit. We might even want to add in a little bit over here as well. Or actually, let's do it with this one. Here we have some dark patches kind of coming through. Puffs of dark smoke. And if you want to adjust this down, you can. Just mess around with it. See what you want to do. All right, so let's add in some more ingredients. Maybe we'll do like some like plant ingredients in this particular whatnot. And again, what I can do, and this is one of the great things about the system, is let's grab, maybe we'll grab one of these like larger, or we can do it a bunch of different ways. Let's actually grab some of this stuff. Maybe like these sea kind of plants. And we can do and there's a whole bunch of stuff. We could grab some stuff from the underwater art package. So let's jump over there. Grab some of these kind of cool stuff that we can and we can do some of these at like different angles and whatnot. Whoop, I think I just dragged and dropped something in there. Let's go back down to our painting area here. It does look like otherworldly ingredients. And again, what we can do is jump up into this painting area here, and we can just grab, let's see here, some shadow. And just kind of break up some of this stuff a little bit. Make it seem as though that there's a layered element to it. Quite the environment we've created here. And I think what we can do in addition to that is I'm going to grab this splash brush once again and go into my tint, and I'm just going to pick up the colors off of the water here. Now I'm going to hold down, well actually I can just do it from here. Let's make it a little bit darker though. Something like this. And I'm going to lower down my opacity. And I'm just going to start to add in a little bit extra to some of this stuff. We don't want it to seem just like foam. And we can kind of do some spilling out here. Make it a little bit darker as well. And then we can do some even lighter stuff here. Let's move some of these. And this way too, we can make a folder and we can drop these in the folder. So if you ever just want to hide them, you could actually set up the environment to be rather interactive this way. So do you guys have any questions? Is there anything that I did that you might require a little bit more information on? Oh, a flowing river? Yeah. We do have two different kind of effects for water, but making it look like it's running in a particular direction is a little bit. But you can definitely create some effects kind of movements. But you could probably do it with, as long as you're moving to the left or to the right, kind of make it feel that way. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to go back down into my ground layer here. And I'm just going to rough up the edge here a little bit. Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it? One of the things that I like is to have the environments to feel a little bit less rigid on their edges. I'm not sure why. I just feel like it feels so much more natural. Yeah, less square. Not so square. We have this nice little area out here as well. We could definitely create another. Maybe we could do like a little island down here. That might be kind of cool. And so one of the things that we can do, let's just do that really quickly, is we have about, well, we have a little bit of time left. But where we use this, um, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just grab this element. I just wanted to get this. I can use this in the opposite direction as well. So if I were to create a circle and have this going on the outside, I can have a fill of land on the inside and do exactly the opposite kind of thing here. And so I'm actually going to increase the fade of this a bit here, and maybe we'll do something like 2. And then in the fill area here, what I'm actually going to do is go back into the 2019 art pack and grab one of these tiles. And we'll grab this once again here. And I'm going to make this a little bit smaller too. And what I'll do is we'll create a new painting layer. We'll do this on top of the. But as you can see, I can now create a nice little element out here, right? We can probably do this above the water thing, or we can do it below, but we can remove it. But you can see how easily now you can create pretty much any sort of environment you want. Let's remove this, and we're going to change the shape of this first, actually. So let's go into our painting tab, and I'm just going to grab these and kind of change this shape here a little bit. That way I'll know what I want to kind of do here. Great. So now we have this really cool little this shape of an island that we have out here, and all I have to do now is go into my effects layer, and I just can click on hide this area here, and I'm just going to kind of trace out this basic shape. I don't have to be exact, just pretty close, you can see there. And I've instantly created a nice little island out here. Now I can go into my plants area here, go into my stamp. We can start to stamp some of this stuff out here. And what I'll also do is go into, I believe it's this one that's changing this to be quite a bit darker. And I can go into my effects and I can do the same thing. I can just kind of remove some of that. And we'll add a little bit of grass out here. And the cool thing, oh, I didn't want to do it on that this painting layer. Let's delete that. Let's go down to our plants layer here where we're doing this and stamp these in. And then here as well, we have all these different plants, right? Here, I can just go into my stamp tool and I can just grab one of these and we can put some bushes out here. And maybe we'll even add in some rocks. We can go back down into this one. Let's do as we did before. I'm going to lower down this opacity quite a lot, and we'll drop in some little reflections of our plants in the water. And we can go into our decorations here. I'm just going to type in rock. And maybe we'll do some of these like smoother kind of stones out here. We might even want to add like a tree out here. Let's do it like right here. That's a little bit too much, don't you think? Let's just leave it a little bit of brush out there. And going back into our painting areas here, our shadow ones, we can go over here. And we can grab one of the shadows. Let's see if we can do it. Where's there one? Right there. And let's do some shadows out from underneath these bushes. And some of those are a little dark. So let's go back down in here. Might even not even need that one. And just kind of bring them in. Excellent. So you can see how easily you can add these elements together just by swapping around the direction of the coastline. We can create islands and we can Basically what an island is just a small landmass, and so it's exactly the same. Instead of using the fill of the water, we use the fill of the land instead. It's a very versatile system. I think we should add a little bit of shadow to that as well. Oh well, you'll be able to all of these maps that we make, we put up on the Forge, so you'll be able to download it as long as you have access to the art subscription or you own the art packs. You'll be able to use it for free. So you certainly will be able to play here if you want. No, so the way that it works is let me just demonstrate this. There's built-in line of sight, and then there's auto creation line of sight. So if I go into the 2019 art pack, and if I were to grab, let's go into the decoration, and I'll just grab a tree. So if I grab and I drag and drop this tree out here, you can see that it has line of sight already attached to it. Looks like that's a little bit small. It's like just the trunk itself. And so if you drag and drop it, it'll automatically have it in there. But let's delete that. And if I switch it over to painting, let's switch over to the stamp tool, and I stamp it, you can see it does not have line of sight. Oh, it looks like our line of sight got all messed up. That's interesting. Well, let's redo that really quick. Structure, create. I wonder if that had to do with like a Z thing. Control Z. I'll have to do some testing. Hmm. But anything that you paint out with the either the fill or the line tool will automatically generate line of sight for you. So let's even if we do it with just a color fill, and so here we have a fill with no stroke. Let's turn the stroke off. And so if I draw a shape out here, which seems to be functioning oddly for the moment. So let me just delete that, and let's go to here. I'll turn this back on for the moment, which again seems to be acting oddly. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Hmm. Not sure what is going on there right now. Let's close that down and reopen it. So if I go over into here and we go into just like having like these normal color fills, and if I were to drag out a shape, for example, let's even add to this shape We can do, and maybe we even do like a little subtraction over here. What we can do is this will also generate all of the line of sight for us, right? We can duplicate this, and it will do that just like that. Well, that's the goal. Thank you, though. Yeah. So the goal is indeed for it to continue to get better and better and better, and till it and it is. It's getting. I mean, just this map creation system alone is phenomenal. Not to mention all the other automated functionality inside of Fantasy Grounds. It's just phenomenal. And as you said, it is just getting better all the time. All right, well, we're going to be winding down the stream here. It's a fun little map that we got to create today. So, do you guys have any further questions, or is there anything else that I can help anybody with before we sign off here? Well, thank you. Thanks for watching. Hey, Spencer. Yeah, thank you, Play Games Patty. Thanks, Drake. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. And we will see you again this next Saturday. I stream from 3 p.m. Eastern Time till just about 6. And we will be going through all of this stuff again, as well as any new. I like to go over all the different news and what's going on as far as like the image side of things go inside of Fantasy Grounds.